In this episode of the Wild Party podcast, I'm thrilled to introduce you to a dynamic sibling duo who are revolutionizing the vegan food industry. Delaney and Jake Burman, the founders of Prophecy Foods. Known for their artisanal cheeses and handcrafted hot sauces, Prophecy Foods is all about creating delicious plant-based foods that bring together family and friends. In our conversation, we dive into their journey from growing up vegetarian to launching their own successful food brand. We'll explore how they turned a love for food and a passion for clean, natural ingredients into a thriving business. Delaney and Jake share insights into their unique fermentation process, their challenges with supply chain issues, and the importance of staying true to their vision. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a conscious consumer, this episode is packed with inspiration, practical advice, and a lot of passion for good food. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Wild Party podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the show, Delaney and Jake. I'm so excited to have you guys here.
Hi, we're excited to be here. Thanks for having us. This is super exciting.
It is. So I feel like my first 10 podcasts of this show all start with, I met you at the Vegan Women's Summit because that's really where I got a lot of my guests. And I have to say, I did meet you at the Vegan Women's Summit, but not only that, you guys were the very, very first vendor booth that I stopped at. You had this perfect placement, which I think I told you guys that day. You were right in the front of the line. It was awesome. And I walked up very excited to talk to you. And I think, Delaney, you were the one who stopped me right away and said, do you want to try our cheese first?
Probably.
And I think I quickly ate it and I tried that. I don't know if I tried the hot sauce. I might have tried the hot sauce right away too, Jake. But I have to say, looking back on it, I wish I had partaken in the samples that were available that day because everything was so delicious and beautiful. And I think next time what I'll do at one of those is I'll try all my samples first and then I'll come back for the interviews because I feel like I really could have had I don't know, a more tasteful time. So I apologize. I launched right into my interview, but I was very excited to meet you guys because you know what? We're seeing such a huge movement in the vegan food sector of all of these really great products coming out. And as you said right on your website, you're creating stuff that people actually want to eat. So that's pretty exciting in itself. Now, I did read a little bit about your history. So I know that Delaney, it was you that kind of first started in the cheese creation. But tell me, just give me a little backstory on you guys of how this all came about. Where was Prophecy Foods born?
Yeah, absolutely. So just for ancient backstory that folks on here will actually appreciate, Jake and I were raised vegetarian, raised cooking. And so we developed a love of food, I think, early on, and then we both sort of did our own thing with it. So I'll share my background and Jake can jump into his after. But initially, I was planning on working in the food tech space from the legal side. I worked as a paralegal after undergrad and just decided that that wasn't close enough to the action and that I wouldn't get to work on stuff I loved every day, and decided to move on over to food. So I left my job as a paralegal, moved to LA, and started working as a personal chef and nanny while applying to B school with the ultimate goal of either working for a food startup or starting my own venture. Wound up at Rice's business school, which is great for entrepreneurship. I could rave about them all day long, and started working on the cheese side of our concept in entrepreneurship classes there. Carried it all the way through my 2 years at Rice. And at the same time, sorry, my cat is in the background, which hopefully people will be familiar with. At the same time, Jake was working on hot sauces, and when I graduated, we decided to merge the businesses instead of running two separate small businesses.
Yeah,
And
I think we both grew up with a huge love of food, and I think growing up vegetarian started to learn really how to work with different spices and flavor profiles and really, create something cohesive. I started sort of doing home brewing and sourdough breads and kombucha at home. That one thing led to another, and eventually did the hot sauces, and just was making them for friends and family, and started bringing them into work. And people started getting offended that they didn't get, a bottle of this batch or that batch. So I was making more and more, and eventually people just said, we'll pay you for the sauce if you're willing to take some money. So it became sort of the side hustle. And then when Delaney had more of sort of the business background under her belt, felt ready to really take the plunge.
well, I mean, first of all, I think it's super interesting that you are a brother and sister team, and I'm going to ask you about how that relationship works. But you mentioned that you did grow up vegetarian. So what was that about? Was that just you both chose to, or that was just your family was just vegetarians?
That was our family. So our mom went veg in the 80s for ethical and health reasons, but she explains it as she was just eating a piece of chicken one day and sort of looked down at her plate and had a moment where she realized what she was eating and just sort of couldn't go backwards. And then our dad went vegetarian 2 weeks after meeting our mom.
Mhm.
Um, I
Total
think,
coincidence.
I think he did it to impress his date, but he says the way she explained it just made a total, made total sense to him, and it was easy to get on board. And so then they raised us vegetarian. And then we all went, vegan or close to it around 2011 when Forks Over Knives was coming out, because it just so happened that one of my mom's friends from high school in Florida was working on the movie and knew we were veg and sent us a copy and said, I think y'all will enjoy this and find it interesting. And yeah, here we are, like 13 years later.
Wow, that's amazing. I love to hear how people got introduced to the lifestyle because it's still, I feel like it's really gaining momentum. I feel like we're really getting closer to where we need to be as a society, but there's still, a lot of people that are, totally new to it and don't understand it and things like that. So I love when people share the story of where it came into their being. Just to let you know a little bit about me, I first got introduced to, let's call it the animal rights, animal liberation through PETA back in the 80s, believe it or not. I know I'm dating myself. But for many years, I was a part of PETA, but living a vegetarian lifestyle. And then finally, for me, 8 years ago, and I'm going to tell you, it was because of the information now available on social media that I really started to learn the true horrors of what the dairy industry and the chicken industry and egg industry really was hiding. And I was like, I can't be a part to any of this. So that's been part of my journey. And I actually have now switched my entire business over to only supporting ethical, compassionate, and sustainable brands like your own, because I'm like, hey, I'm the person, I'm the marketer that can get you your audience. And I'm also the person that can build your audience. So that's where this whole thing came about and why I decided to launch the Wild Party podcast. So it's really great meeting guys, people like you and hearing your origin story as well. And then not only that, like I said, meeting you at such an amazing event like the Women's Vegan Summit and getting to taste, oh my God, my mouth is watering, the cheeses and the hot sauce. Because first of all, I had a hate relationship with vegan cheese forever.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all?
Horrible.
Truly. Yeah.
Tasted like plastic and just tasted like, and I was like very much one of those people like, I don't even want to eat something that like tastes like an animal product. So I was very against it. But as brands like yours have come up and really started developing these things, these products that are really delicious and nutritional, because I know, Delaney, you are very specific about your ingredient list, which we're also
Yeah,
going to
we
talk
are.
about because I love. I now find myself saying, yeah, I'll eat these products. I will buy them, I will support them, and I will also promote them because they're delicious. Like I don't feel anymore that I'm like faking it, like just being like, oh, I want to have a cheese product, so let me eat this really crappy product. Now I'm like just thinking about like what I ate with you guys at the summit. I'm like, I want more of that. That was really, really good. So I know I just touched a little bit about this whole ingredient list. Let's talk about that because again, a lot of times and a lot of the blowback we get on the vegan brands is people are like, you look at the ingredient list and it's like a chemical cocktail.
Yeah.
It's like a Diet Coke. What is that crap? So speak to me a little bit about why your ingredients are so specific and what you do to make sure that you are picking things that not only taste good, but are that, more nutritional and more sustainable and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, I'll lead off and just jump in whenever I
Sure,
miss
yeah.
stuff. But really, I mean, I think number one, that focus on clean ingredients, on nutritional value aligns with how both of us like to eat, how we were raised, and what we think our food system should look like. But more specifically, when I started playing around with this idea at Rice in classes, in their intro to entrepreneurship class, they take you through a pretty specific framework for gathering research and feedback from customers or interested parties in your industry or problem space that you're looking at. And we did a bunch of customer interviews, so not with direct friends or family, but all like friends of friends or people we sort of found on social media. We did a couple surveys. And I really expected that everyone would respond that the issue with dairy-free cheeses were taste and texture. And actually, most people responded that ingredients and nutrition were their biggest problem. That when they were going to switch to a plant-based product, especially because most of these folks were not vegan, they were either seeking out healthier, options, trying to eat more veg, eating for allergens, that sort of thing. And they said that when they wanted to switch to a plant-based product, they expected it to be healthier and they would pick up the vegan cheeses in the grocery stores. And it wasn't the case. There was no protein. It was all empty calories, mostly from oil. And then there was lots of food starches and gums, and that they didn't feel like that was a healthier option than the dairy cheeses they were already consuming based on ingredients and nutrition. So when I started developing our products, I only looked at using ingredients that you would go into your pantry or fridge and grab, and you would cook with those if you were making something yourself for your family. And went from there. And then I looked at a lot of recipes that I knew I didn't like and looked at the ingredients they had in common, and we decided not to use those too. Things like vinegar or miso, which are great ingredients, but which for us, don't taste natural, and cheese weren't hitting those cheesy flavors that we were used to and we were trying to replicate. And then Jake, on the ingredient side, on the hot sauces, we also keep it super clean and whole foods oriented. So Jake, do you want to talk a little bit about how you got to that framework too?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it is that we're siblings. We grew up in the same household and sort of formed a very similar food identity. Um, Also, it was the first thing that we had a conversation about when we started talking about working with each other and merging our businesses. The real sticking point was that we didn't ever want to use any artificial ingredients, artificial preservatives or fake colors or thickeners or flavors. We don't even use starches in the cheeses. Um, we don't use refined sugars. We're all about getting to where we need to be flavor wise to have something that is better than, all the other options on the market, which I think we've achieved or are, constantly working on improving and achieving. But yeah, it was a very easy decision to sort of eliminate or leave out all the other crap. There's plenty of it out there if that's what you want. I'm not going to judge anyone for how they eat. Whether it's processed or vegan or non-vegan. I think it's all sort of very personal, and I appreciate everyone, making their effort to participate in a conscious and ethical way. But yeah, we're just sort of no crap.
That's your tagline, no crap. I do love that. I am such a very picky about things in my food. Like I have a palate where I can taste an artificial sweetener and tell you which one they're using. Like I know the different, I mean, I don't like any of them. And the same with what they're used for a lot of the thickening, like the gums and stuff like that. Now, maybe just because I've read about them and I am able to identify them because of my knowledge base now, that really when I look at products and I'm like, oh, it's got this, what is it called? Gellum gum or whatever. Then I'm like, ugh.
Deland gum, yeah.
Yeah. And then, we always hear then news stories where, various industries like the meat industry and the dairy industry use that as ammunition to say, oh, these products
Sure.
aren't good for you. They actually ruin your body, right? And
Right.
I'm not saying like they're even wrong because I don't know what that stuff is. So that was another thing when I really started to read more about Prophecy Foods. I'm like, I like you guys. Like, I like that you're really being thoughtful about this and making these really awesome products that people want to eat. That's, good for them. That it's a snack food. So it's like a fun food, so many different things that you can do. Jake, I want to talk to you really quickly about the fermentation side because fermentation has also gotten a lot of, play in the news recently. Whereas, they're saying fermented products are good for you. Now, I don't know if that aligns with hot sauce, but tell me a little bit because I know you're the master of fermentation. How does that work into your products?
I love the tagline "Master of Fermentation." I'm not sure we can knowledgeable about fermentation. I don't know if I'd label myself a master in anything, but I do appreciate that. It's very generous of you. Um, yeah, so I think I had always wanted to learn more about um, sort of like specifically like alcohol fermentation. One of my best friend's dads, or I guess stepdad, is a home brewer and sort of got me into I would say that sort of sphere of things, making, homebrewed beers and ciders. Um, but it's so many, the further you delve into it, there's so many similar microbes at work. So a lot of the same stuff that's souring, a sourdough bread or a kombucha is also what we use to sour our pepper mashes for the hot sauces. So uh, I think fermentation just provides uh, and again, from a natural, source, nothing artificial or synthesized. It's, natural microbes that are growing on the peppers. Um, it just delivers sort of superior flavor. We don't have to, you're sort of, talking about the different gums and artificial sweeteners tasting a different way. I feel the same way about like vinegar versus lemon juice. All these sort of acids have different minute, um, you know, uh, differing flavor profiles. So we only want to use something intentionally to make the sauces great. So I'll use vinegar in a buffalo sauce. We do a Louisiana style sauce where it's like that's the flavor profile, that's the intention. Um, but it's sort of a way that we can really attack flavor from a natural standpoint, and it allows us to make the cheeses taste cheesy and have that lactic acid profile that a standard or a non-dairy or sorry, a dairy cheese would have. And then in the hot sauces, so I think some of the health benefits from fermentation, those are more aligned with the cheeses because we have active microbes in the cheese. We do pasteurize all of our hot sauces, so we have a shelf-stable product. I toyed around with not pasteurizing sauces for a while, and it's very, very difficult to distribute and ship a product that is unpasteurized and still has active fermentation. And at the end of the day, the dose you would get of lactobacillus, active lactobacillus, from a few, maybe a half ounce or an ounce of hot sauce, you're really not, it's not where you're going to get your most significant volume of gut healing microbes. But if you eat sauerkraut or something that's a lot higher volume of that microbe, it absolutely helps with digestion and gut health. Back in 2018, I started doing like a kombucha every day, and I've gone off of that here and there. But just including something that's microbially living, I think makes a huge difference. So much of our food system these days is based on, monoculture and, shelf life and distribution. that you have to put some living food back in your body to just make you feel good.
Yeah. Well, with hearing all of that, Jake, I'm going to stand by my earlier title for you as Master of Fermentation, because I think you not only have a great grasp of it, but you are leading the way in new technologies for us, which I totally appreciate. So now, of course, I'm sitting here thinking about your food. It's almost lunchtime. My mouth is watering, but this show really is, the intention is for us to help other entrepreneurs that are out there to start their businesses as they're, either formulating their ideas or just getting up and started. So, Delaney, I did read, so I know you have an MBA, congratulations. And I did
Thank
read
you.
when you were at Rice, you were actually part of a incubator, was it, or a contest, and you got some funding. Tell me about your entrepreneur journey as far as like you're starting a business, you need funding, you need to get product off the ground. How did that work for you? And, moving forward, what would you think maybe you would do a little different?
Sure. So I will say I won the Audience Choice Award in one of the pitch competitions I made it to the finals of. I applied to so many pitch competitions, I can't even remember, and basically won like none of them, which I was super disheartened by at the time. But I'll say we've outlasted a lot of the other companies that were pitching. So it's not everything by any means. We won, I think it was $1,000 or $1,200 in funding, which is not nothing. It paid our deposit on our commercial kitchen for our first month. So that's where that money went. Looking back, things I would do differently would be start this years sooner. I mean, I really knew deep down I always wanted to work on dairy-free cheese. For me, it's always been the sticking point. We've watched as every other category has gotten infinitely better. And, we remember drinking soy milk and eating veggie burgers in the 90s, and wow, how far they've come since then. And dairy-free cheese is, I would say, still behind every other category. But I held off because I felt like there was no way I could come up with something. Like all these companies have huge R&D teams and labs. And it turns around you can just YouTube a bunch of recipes and trial and error things in your kitchen until you wind up somewhere you like. So that's number one thing I would do differently. I'm trying to think if that actually answers your question. But I can talk about funding too, if that's
Yeah,
more where
tell
you
us
were.
about funding. But I just want to interject too that you were saying about, applying for a bunch of different competitions and winning that one. That is the test of the true entrepreneur, is being able to keep pushing through no matter what it looks like in front of you now. And that is something that, I really want our audience to listen to and take to heart. It's even if success, or what you consider success, is not in front of you right now, that's no excuse to quit, because like you said, if you would have started this years ago, I feel the same way. And you know what the saying goes is the best time to start was 10 years ago. And the
Right.
next best time to start is right
Right
now.
now. Yeah.
You have to keep pushing through and figuring it out step by step. So tell me, give me your little insights on funding.
Yeah, you have to keep pushing, and you have to, I mean, your expectation should be that most other people won't get the vision or what you're doing until you've already proven it successful. So anytime you hear no, like take the feedback with a grain of salt, use what you can, but you're absolutely right. You just have to keep moving forward. So funding, we have done a number of things. We have not raised any venture capital. Our goal will be never to have to do that. The nice thing about food is we could get a product out immediately, which we both did, and start selling. It's really the best way to get feedback. Start before you're ready. Paying customers will give you more honest feedback than anyone else trying your stuff ever could. So that's number one. We both did, Google form pre-orders. I met and I'm not sure if I should admit any of this publicly, but was sitting in the Whole Foods parking lot with a cooler, handing out cheeses to people who had somehow gotten the link to the Google form. I mean, figure out how to start and just do it. As far as funding, so we did take that little bit of prize funding. I also used a little experimental funding at Rice, in the hundreds of dollars to run some tests and experiments. I worked on my concept in every class through my second year of school, which got other brains working on it all for free. And then Jake and I both worked through most of last year. So our first year in business together, we both kept working for other companies. And then we've raised some friends and family money, which we've largely didn't start using until this year when we've been working on expanding and investing in, things like getting help, whereas we were doing everything ourselves last year. But the biggest thing for us has been to focus on getting revenue in the door and then reinvesting that all in the business.
Yeah, and
So if you,
you've done a good job of that because you are also, I think, the leaders of the farmers market circuit. I was checking out your website. You guys have so much going on, and obviously, I met you at a summit, and we did talk that day about farmers markets. And I'll have let you in on something I found funny as I was talking to other businesses, saying, "Oh, what's your marketing plan or strategy, or what are you doing?" A lot of them said, "Oh, I don't do any marketing. I don't know how to." But then they would list these farmers markets they were at, and I'm like, "That's your marketing." And for a
100%.
new brand, you're right, guerrilla style. I mean, even in a parking lot is great, like getting that feedback. So, tell me about your experiences as far as like using these farmers markets and local markets in order to get your product in people's hands.
Yeah, so I mean, I would recommend it to any food entrepreneur. I can't imagine a better like entry to market for us at least. It's a little different if you have, different kinds of products or need regulatory approval or anything, but it basically means you're in front of your customers at least once a week. We're in front of some of them more than once a week. You get direct feedback because you get to watch people sample your products. So you get to see hundreds of people every weekend react to trying your products, which is the only way to make improvements. And you focus your improvements in R&D on the right metrics because you know if they're buying your stuff or not, and then you know why not, if not. Instead of like, I think an easy pitfall in early entrepreneurship is to focus on fixing things that aren't really an issue to your consumer and ignore things that are. So the farmers market kind of de-risks that whole issue because you're getting real-time feedback. You're seeing who's coming back. They're telling you how they're using the product for entertaining and recipes. And it's just that constant real-time information that you wouldn't be able to get if you weren't in front of your customers directly.
Yeah, and food
On a
is such
regular
a
basis.
visceral product. Obviously, if you can stand there with the sample as they do in supermarkets and say, "Hey, taste this," people are
Right.
much more likely to buy it. And your packaging is adorable, by the way, which I also want to talk
Thanks.
about. So I really love that you guys were jumping on that, and I wanted to make sure that our entrepreneurs that are listening out there say, don't feel like how do I say this? Like a farmer's market is beneath you because sometimes people
Yeah.
want to just go big. They're like, oh no, I'm going to get in like a supermarket chain. And like you said, it's like your feedback's right there one on one with these people in front of you. So
Yeah.
like get that first and get it into their hands so then they can be the people that go to the grocery stores and say, oh, I'd really like to have that product. Especially in the vegan sector, people are very passionate about making sure brands like yours, succeed. And I would do that. I would go to my local Whole Foods and say, are you carrying Prophecy brand? Because they're like the best. Like, why are you not? Because there always like a store manager and they do have a lot of buying power. People don't realize that stores have buying power for what's carried in their local market. They
Yeah,
think it's like
100%.
a big chain decision of what your like mega grocery store is going to carry, but there is room for smaller brands to kind of slide in. So
Yeah,
you guys that are listening out there,
certainly our
conscious
goal.
consumers, go ask for the products that you've tried at these farmers markets. Put it on the list. And then, if entrepreneurs, be the ones that are out there in the public and working one-on-one with people. They will be your biggest cheerleaders, your biggest supporters, and really help you, get going. So I think we haven't really covered as far as like starting a brand and what the entrepreneur journey's been like. I have a quick question then for you. And I think it's just because we're still coming out of the pandemic. Have you guys had any supply chain issues yet with things that you thought you wanted and then, oh, Jake's eyes, if you're watching video, you guys just saw Jake's eyes like bug out. Either of you want to jump in on that? What's happened with that supply chain situation?
Yeah, you never know when a problem is going to come up. And if you're not sort of prepared and have a regular production schedule, I mean, everyone's needs are different. For us, it's pretty easy to sort of control and predict how much inventory we need because we have a lot of regulars at these markets. We have a pretty good set of data to lead us through what we need to be producing. Um, I would say most recently, I mean, there's always some packaging supply chain issues. So for hot sauce, we use a 4 ounce and a 2 ounce. Boston round bottle, which is sort of that maybe like old school looking, um, like medicine type bottle, but a clear glass. Um, just finding those and making sure that they're in stock and keeping caps for those on hand at all times is definitely difficult. Even over the past couple of months, we've had to sort of adjust our production schedule based on we just didn't have, packaging to put stuff into. Um, More notably for our black truffle cheese, we use a Italian black summer truffle that's packed in olive oil. And we had a producer that we loved the flavor and the consistency of the product, the price point, everything was just perfect for what we were using. And that producer's either no longer manufacturing that product or just hasn't been able to this year. Um, so there were a few R&D sessions where Delaney and I were trying different black truffle products, and uh, I was not thrilled with
Yeah.
with what we found sort of initially, and it just takes experimentation. Try as many different products as you need to. Um, if you need to get something done, there's a way to do it. We could have very easily just stopped and said, all right, well, we can't do black truffle anymore. We can't do our truffalo hot sauce. But there's probably an answer out there somewhere, uh, despite the fact that it is very difficult to dig through and find it sometimes. If it's the right thing to do, you have to do it. And I think that's definitely a common theme in entrepreneurship. You have to stay true to your vision and your brand. And we certainly weren't ever going to release something that was inferior quality or something that didn't taste as good. So maintain your standard, first and foremost for you as a business owner, and your customers will absolutely appreciate it. Funny enough, I think our truffle products now are better. I actually like the flavor and sort of the intensity of flavor that we're getting out of and it's still a shaved Italian black summer truffle, but finding one that doesn't use safflower oil or sunflower oil or artificial preservatives or anything crazy. There is a pretty strict list of things that we're not going to use in our products. But yeah, just you got to sift through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Delaney, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it is super nerve-wracking when all of a sudden, truffle was one of my original three cheese flavors. Like we've cut flavors and added flavors since then, and all of a sudden the same product I've been using the whole time, it's just like gone. Like we don't know if it'll ever come back. It's just totally missing in action. And yeah, Jake's right. It just took a lot of trial and error to find something else that we liked. It's more expensive, which is not great, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but figuring out how to solve those problems, I mean, that's the true mark of a good entrepreneur. So, Jake, I just want to say really quickly about the Boston bottles. I love that you picked them because it elevates the brand to that luxury level. And you probably already figured that out. Like compared to just the store-bought brand, it made me feel like I was having something really special because I did grab a couple of your sample bottles. And I'm sure you
Mhm.
guys have already thought about this, but you made the right choice. Like when I would use it, it felt very elevated to me. And with that said, as we all know, people are willing to pay more for a product that they feel is a luxury product. So if that was all part of your thought process in your marketing, congratulations, you guys succeeded. I was
Thank you.
totally on board for whatever it was going to cost because I'm like, yes, I have an elevated experience with this. It's a better product. It's a luxury item. So I just wanted to mention that. And speaking of success and satisfying and things like that, let me just ask you both quickly, and I want you both to answer this individually. And maybe Delaney, we'll start this one with you. What is your definition of success?
I mean, there are a lot of different ways I can answer that. I will say the thing that consistently feels the best and keeps me invested in what we're doing is watching people try our stuff and react positively, which they do 99% of the time. So having customers come back each week and say how much they love it. And we had one customer who he and his wife are just lovely and we see them all the time. And he tried something new recently and just said, y'all hit it out of the park every single time. And that it's just like, That means we're making products that people trust and love, and that they'll try new products when we release them because they already like the existing ones. And that for me is where we need to be at. And now we just need to grow. So
Yeah,
that'll be the
absolutely.
next level of success. But
Yeah, and that's a mark of a really strong brand when you can launch a new product and people are already invested and say, "Oh yeah, I like this other one. I want to try this one," which, the really big successful brands know and do, and why they were able to diversify their lines as well and still have a client base. So Jake, let's try a slightly different question for you then. What's been your most satisfying moment as an entrepreneur?
I think there's, especially the way we started without funding and sort of a overarching structure behind us, people who had worked in CPG and food and bev before, um, moments like getting the invite to Vegan Women's Summit to be a part of the Pathfinder Lab that just feel redemptive. Like, okay, someone is paying attention, people are noticing, this is working. I think recently, uh, well, I guess it was back in May, but the launch of the new branding, merging what was Prophecy Hot Sauce and Berman Foods, now everything being Prophecy Foods. We have a sweet new logo. We've updated our labels, and I think looking and feeling legit and sort of well polished is the only differentiator. There's not, trying to think of a way to say this. It certainly builds a lot of confidence to, present your product the way that you want to and make it look professional. So
Yeah, I
yeah, I
can see
think
that. What's in your mind now is actually a physical product, which I really love. Can we talk about the name Prophecy? You guys, where'd that come from?
uh, so originally it was Prophecy Hot Sauce. Um, I can tell you, we went through a lot of names. I was living, this is back in San Diego, so I was working and brewing for someone else full time and living at my friend's house. My friend, phenomenal human, love this guy more than a lot of people. Um, his name is Hayden, and he has a sort of med spa marketing business called Jump Forward Media, and they, started a couple years before us. He started his business a few years before us, and he really helped me work through. We tried, many different brands. We thought about Dr. Sauce and, sort of using. We looked at test batch hot sauce. And we just sort of tried to develop like a brand identity with all those different names, and nothing really fit or worked. And I guess sort of just one day it clicked in my head, prophecy. And there was a moment right when I had started doing fermentation in Florida, where I'd come back home from a bartending shift, and there was a little uh, owl. I'm not sure what kind. I think maybe an eastern screech owl was sitting right outside of my door with one blind eye, and I was able to, I think probably because I had a blind eye, get up real close and get a photo of it. And I looked up, what's the meaning behind this, and all sorts of different cultures have, positive connotations or negative connotations for an owl, or an owl with, one eye. For us, it was seeing into the future by going into the past, if that makes any sense. So using natural processes, using natural ingredients, tying ourselves, more deeply rooted to the earth, and producing things in a way that we can care for the earth and be sustainable, not just, for the planet, but for the people consuming our products as well. So I would say that is our prophecy, is a food system that's, cares for the world and the people a little bit better, and the animals
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, I like that. I really did feel that when, I met you guys, I tried the product, I looked at the name, I did feel that it kind of harkened back to like a more handcrafted feel, like you said, a more natural feel. So when I started really, again, reading more about you guys, I saw, oh yeah, that's really already integrated in there. So I think you really hit the nail on the head as far as that one. And then from your side then, Delaney, I guess you felt like that really worked in overall with the entire cheese line as well, right?
Yeah, so I actually got so frustrated trying to find a name for the cheeses early on when I was doing them. I had a really long French name in the beginning, Fromage de la Terre, which is cheese of the earth. And I had a mentor say to me, no one in America speaks French, certainly not the average customer. No one will be able to pronounce it, and it'll be a pain for the rest of your business. Do something else. And so I was like, screw it, we're calling it Berman Foods because that's our last name, and that was it. And I didn't have to think about it. And then Jake and I went back and forth a while about whether we were going to use prophecy for both. And we just felt like we wanted something aspirational that also aligned with the value of the business and our ethics as entrepreneurs. And we thought that focusing on what we see as a return or reawakening to natural processes, fermentation, food that's made from real food ingredients and isn't, artificially cooked up somewhere, just represented what we were doing and worked for both lines. So we decided to stick with that instead of finding a third, new concept.
Yeah, and I think it lends to a lot more creativity again in your marketing and your promotions and everything. So I did really like that for you guys. I was excited. All right, so this has been a really, really awesome conversation with you guys, but I'm not going to let you off the hook that quickly because I'm very big into what we call stacking our wins. And if you've read any of the entrepreneur motivational books, I think it's kind of in all of it at this point, where we really look at things that have been successful in our business and our lives and maybe even write them down in a journal and kind of use that as a gauge to get us to that next level. Because like we said, very easy as an entrepreneur to quit, like when it gets hard, or maybe you reached a certain level, you're like, oh, I guess I'm really done trying. I'll just coast on this. So again, I want you both to individually answer this. So share a win with us that you've had in the last 90 days, Jake and Delaney each. And it could be a personal win or a win for your business. Give me something in the last 90 days you considered a real win.
I'll start. So we added two new, what we're calling dips. They're still cheese based, but they're a little creamier and more dippable than our initial and other, spreadable cheese format, which are the ones you tried. And we did a pimento one because we're in Texas and we were raised in Florida and everyone loves pimento. And then at my boyfriend's request, a cheesecake dip. And people have loved them. We love using them at home, and we've seen them bring in new customers who we don't think would have tried the regular cheeses for whatever reason and seem more interested in trying these first. And then once they taste them, they'll taste other things. And yeah, they've just been a great addition and products that we're really excited about growing. And yeah, I think that's felt like a win.
Awesome. And Jake, personal or business win in the last 90 days?
I'll give you one small one for each that I think sort of ties together. I think for, so long I was just focused on head down, eyes on my lane, business, 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 like the work comes first, and sort of at the cost of maintaining physical and mental health for myself. So sort of over the past 90 days, started, spending a little bit more time on that and feeling a lot better, which puts you in the space that you need to be creatively and functionally just able to get more work done during the day, feeling better about myself, feeling better about the brand. And I think it reflects, especially at farmers markets where like you're seeing these people face to face and you want your fans to be or customers to be excited and happy. I think this is really a way for us to spread joy in a way. So I think it's just spending the time on mental health has made a huge, huge difference for me. And I think Delaney would say the same over the past year. She started a little bit earlier than me on that and brought me along. So that's for personal. For business. We just recently were accepted into two new farmers markets, and we are undergoing a sort of strategy and approach roadmap to hopefully see our cheeses and sauces in retailers sort of towards the end of the year or leading into next year. So yeah, just more folks that can now have some prophecy in their lives.
Awesome. That perfectly segues into the final question I would ask you, of course, is where can our listeners find your products so they can have them maybe without living near a farmer's market they're at? How can they find you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say this, if you really, really want us and you're somewhere far and wide, send us a DM on Instagram or an email. We recently sent some family friends in Taiwan, some hot sauce, Taiwan and Australia. We can't get the cheese that far yet, but online at prophecyfoods.com, we do have nationwide shipping for the lower 48 states for cheese and for hot sauce. And then we also have a full list of our markets on our website, prophecyfoods.com. We currently do a couple of local markets in Houston, Urban Harvest, the Rice Village Farmers Market, and Heights Mercantile Farmers Market. And we'll soon be joining the Tomball area farmers market and Bay Area farmers markets as well.
But yeah, everyone in the US can buy us online now, so long as you're not in Alaska or Hawaii. We'll work on those next. And if you have a retailer by you that you'd really love to see us in, please reach out on socials, on email, on our website, whatever. I am building that list, and that's our next phase. So we would love to know where you guys are shopping and where you want to find us so we can get in there.
Well, awesome. And I'll make sure that in our show notes, we do have posted the website, the social, so they can find you all guys. You might have noticed a second ago that my eyes lit up when you said Tomball. That's because oddly enough, one of my best friends lives there.
Oh, yeah.
And she is like a hot sauce connoisseur, and I cannot wait to send her your way.
That's awesome.
You're going to love her. First of all, she's a horror writer. So she's going to see your brand Prophecy and be like, I need to talk to these guys. And she's going to love your cheeses and your hot sauce. I'll let you know right now, she's not a vegan, but we have been best friends like for over 25 years. And when she would come to LA to visit me, I was vegetarian at that point, but I was already weaning myself off cheese. So I would make lasagna all the time. And I didn't tell her this at first, but I was using tofu in it and she could never tell. And I was using like just various products. And then like one night when we were drunken, because we were still drinking at that point, I finally admitted, I'm like, by the way, your lasagna is tofu. And she's like, I'm going to kill you. But she ate it and she still loved it. So when you meet her, her name is Rain Graves. Be like, oh, I heard that you used to eat tofu lasagna and you loved it.
That's so awesome.
But yes, I'm going to send her to you at the Tomball Farmers Market because she will love it. With that said, you guys, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute delight to talk to you both. I love your story. I love that we could support you. And I can't wait to see what's, on the horizon for you and Prophecy Foods, because I am all on board and I can't wait to see you grow.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a delight, and it's always nice when we get to take a step back from sort of day-to-day operations and actually remind ourselves what we're doing and why. So thank you for giving us that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's out there who's listening, wants to hear more inspiring, stories of entrepreneurs and for our conscious consumers that really want to, support and buy these products, just check out the rest of our shows on the Wild Party podcast. And check out the listings on our website as well. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Stephanie. You
Appreciate
too.
it so much.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good. And we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.